we're going to go ahead and start our committee meeting.
Perfect.
If everybody can get engaged, or I'll just wait for the public to wrap up their comments. We're good? We're going to get started. All right, awesome. All right. Welcome, everybody. My name is David Santiago, and I guess many of you know me, resident of Deltona, former city commissioner, current state representative. I want to thank the city first for continuing with this issue that's very important to us. But what I'd like to do is, since most of us don't know each other, maybe even for the record, start with Dana here. Just introduce yourself real quick, and if you want to make a brief comment, go for it, and then we'll just continue, and then we'll get on to the agenda. So,
Sure.
Dana, we'll start with you, and then Valerie, you'll be next.
Dana McCool, Deltona, Florida, and I just was, I'm hoping that this audit will, and look at it as an audit, will help us as a city move forward with our water issues.
Thank you, Dana. Valerie? You're next, Valerie.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I apologize that I'm not there in person. I'm actually out of state, but I'm a Deltona resident for the last 22 years. My kids, I've been married. I'll be married 36 years, and my kids, I have 3 who have grown up in Deltona and gone to the Deltona school system. And I hope that this meeting and putting this committee together, that we can help resolve some of the issues and bring some great information to the table so that we can get this resolved. And hopefully, with the community and this committee that we can get this taken care of, get it done. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie.
Santiago Avila Jr. I'm here because I really want to see our city start moving forward, and I'm hoping that this comes out as something positive for our city. That way we can start getting our city to move forward.
And I am Tim Cole. I am a resident of Enterprise, Florida, which is just outside of the city limits of Deltona. And I am here to try to help those of us who are outside the city limits, who are paying a 25% surcharge on our water bills monthly. We are, in my community, sewer customers, and we have been paying a very high bill for the sewer system in Deltona. It is our hope that we can find a solution to our high water bills that's fair and just for all customers of Deltona Water.
Thank you, Tim. And thanks for members of the public coming to join us. Obviously, I got involved, the commission, after many of you know that we had a appropriation request that went into the legislature that got approved by the Florida House and the Florida Senate, went into the budget. Unfortunately, it was vetoed by the governor, and the city commission immediately, actually before the budget had been closed out by the governor, expressed that regardless if it gets approved or not by the governor, that there was interest in continuing to research this and hopefully bring some closure and solutions and healing, as I think you said, Santiago, which is what motivated me to be involved. I mean, I want to make it very clear, I'm not here as a representative of the state imposing any of the state's policy, here more so to try to guide this process. And one of the commitments, a few commitments that I made to the City Commission was that we're going to keep it focused to the issue at hand, is what do we want to look into Deltona Water. We're going to stray very closely to that, narrowly focused to that. What's also important for me to share with you that during this process, when I agreed to it, I made it very clear that I'd asked them to give me the liberty of allowing me to work the process. So I can tell you there's been no influence on the selection of the committee members, or even what we discuss, other than keeping it as to a scope of a review audit of Deltona Water, because I believe sincerely there is an interest now to move forward and find out if we can make some improvements and what the norm is out there or the best practices. So I did want to add a couple of things. Sunshine, there was a question about sunshine. The best advice I can give to anybody, I've been a city commissioner, is that from this moment forward, we've created a committee, an advisory committee. Let's not discuss with each other what we're going to propose or discuss or who we're going to select moving forward. That'll keep us clean and out of trouble there. The meetings are being recorded. They're held open to the public. So that, if you just follow that, you're in good shape. Or don't try to use any intermediaries to communicate to another member of the committee. That's also would cause any issues. So other than that, I think we'll run fine. My role, what I'm going to try to do mainly, is to allow you all to dictate kind of sort of what the ideas are. And unless we get stuck, I won't interject, but largely allow this to come out of the four of you to see, what ideas we want to look into. And the only other time I probably interject if I feel that we're getting off the rails, right? To kind of keep us focused. I want to keep it structured and professional. And then one wants to speak and try not to talk over each other. That way we get a good recording. So I asked staff to come up with a little agenda. I prepared this. And what I thought important, because many of us probably never had exposure to the public procurement process, because there are laws that govern this. So I felt that we have to also fall within the parameters of the law and how we put out a request for proposal. So Ms. Siafi is here from the purchasing department. Particularly, I think she's focused on the Deltona Water procurement process. And they have provided to us a summary of the RFP process here and a little bit more detailed substance here. Yeah, members of the public wanted, there's copies there. But Ms. Siafi, I asked her to give us a kind of quick overview verbally on how this process works. And we will have opportunities, possibly within the parameters of the law, to tweak that. And I have one area in particular that I have to tweak, and I'll share that with you when we get to that point. Yeah, Dana.
Before we get into the scope and all that entails, I would like to address the need for public input. I understand that this committee is put together of residents and people affected by Deltona Water, and it is my hope that we can represent and listen to all residents on this issue as we are making this decision. There are residents and Deltona Water customers who have a vested interest in this work, and we need to define the vehicle for public input, whatever that is. I suggest we allow public input on the specific topics of the meeting agenda and also set up a method for the public to submit questions using email, phone, or in writing, and allow a specific method for collecting resident experiences to share with the selected auditor to help guide focus. And I just get that out of the way because I've been asked a lot about resident input because that's why we're here. So I wanted to address that. It's something to kick down the road, and I just would like to mention that.
Thank you. Any other comments before Ms. Siafi kind of gives us an overview?
I completely agree with Dana.
Okay.
We have to find a way for public input.
Okay. We'll get into that.
Okay.
Hi everyone, my name is Jackie Siafi. I'm the purchasing agent with the City of Deltona. Our purchasing manager, Kate Duffy, which will also be overseeing this whole process, was unable to make it tonight. She put together a lot of these documents that I'll go over. I will read 1 through 11. If you have any questions when I'm done, please feel free to ask, and I'll try to help, the best that I can to guide in the right direction. Number 1 is a request for proposal, RFP, is developed, which provides the scope of work and provides specific criteria which are assigned points to enable the selection committee to evaluate and score the proposal. Next, the selection committee members are appointed by the city manager designate, but you guys have already been formed, so that's one step that's taken care of. The RFP, once the scope of work and everything's together and the whole RFP is put together, it will be posted on DemandStar, which is what the city uses to post all of our bids and proposals and RFQs for approximately 20 days, and responses are to be received no later than the due date and time. Number 4, proposals are distributed to selection committee members to independently score each proposal based on criteria as listed in the RFP. Number 5, a selection committee meeting is scheduled and all score sheets collected prior to the meeting so that they can be combined to come up with the highest scoring firms. Number 6, discussion begins between committee members regarding the top 3 or more highest scoring firms. The others are no longer considered. Number 7, after discussions, committee members may change their scoring based on the additional information provided by other committee members. Number 8, the selection committee determines as a group whether or not interviews and/or presentations are needed. Number 9, if so, the meetings are scheduled with the highest scoring firms. If not, the committee may give the highest scoring firms and their proposals to the commission, who will have final say in the ranking of the firms. Number 10, once the ranking is approved, negotiations begin with the highest scoring firm. If successful, the next step is to enter into an agreement with the firm. If not, negotiations are formally terminated and negotiations take place with the next highest scoring firm, and so on until negotiations are successful. Number 11, if the final cost negotiated is within the budget, the city manager can approve the award to that firm. If the final cost exceeds the budget, request for approval of award and additional funding will be brought to the commission for approval. Does anyone have any questions?
Now, that's the legal process for them to have to follow. I'll just add this to it. On the rankings of the top three, I talked to Ms. Yaffe, and I've talked to our state folks. My preference is going to be, we don't know how many companies will respond to the RFP, but to rank all of them. If there's 10, we're going to rank all, 1 through 10. In my process, I don't want to exclude any because of the technicalities that I have to deal with. So we will rank all of them based on what the committee's scoring is. And yeah, that was all I want to share. You guys got any questions?
1 second. And by law, anything that we receive, whether it's 5, 10, 15, we have to rank every single one of them. And then it's up to the committee to rank those firms. And you can either choose 3, 5, however many. But obviously it's also explained in this that you guys can read later on, that comes later on in the evaluation process, is you typically go with the ones that are in the same criteria. If you have lower firms, say if you have a firm up here that's 90 and you have a firm that scored 20, you're not going to put them in that process to evaluate because they obviously missed something in what you were asking for.
Dana?
Yes, and that just as a matter of housekeeping, because we're starting this committee and moving forward. I would like to, as part of due diligence, would like to send an official request again to the Office of the Auditor General to provide an estimate to do a financial, operational, and performance audit as per Florida Statute 11.45. And that's just to clarify like what state standards would be as opposed to what the private companies, and to make sure that we kind of follow the same process there.
I'll look into that for you.
Thank you.
And have an update to you for the next
Okay,
meeting.
thanks.
Eric, you got that?
I would like to request my fellow committee members, if any of the firms that are brought up, if any of us have a relation to any of those firms, that we disclose that relationship to each other so that there's no conflict of interest.
I agree with that.
Maybe trying to use somebody that the city doesn't currently use as a matter of fact, somebody a little bit different.
Hold on, Valerie, you're going to be next. I think Ms. Yaffe wants to respond to that comment.
Typically, the first part, can you repeat the first part of what you were?
If possibly, for example, I've noticed that we tend to go back to using the same people over and over.
Well, I know that I spoke with Kate on that, and that's typically through our RFQ process, which is the consultants. And I know specifically when the scope of work is formed and the rest of the RFP is formed, she is going to put a clause in there that it's not for consultants. It's basically for outside firms that are familiar with this process.
Okay.
And certainly, when we consider our evaluation to the companies, we can certainly ask that question if they have an existing relationship with the
And there
city.
is a form in the RFP that everyone has to sign, or right before you do the scoring process, that you have to sign showing that you have no affiliation.
And then
Yeah.
one other thing is, are we allowed to have, aside from this, each of us individually, some type of meeting with the public so we can get the public's input on that process as well?
I'll tell you, I personally don't have a problem with that because you're open to discuss this with anybody outside. The only
Okay.
thing else is amongst committee members now, right? So we follow the law, so I don't have a problem with that unless any other committee member does.
I don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
Valerie, you had a comment,
Yeah.
question?
No, I agree. I don't have a problem with that.
Okay. Listen, I like what I'm hearing already because, from the moment of that I was requested to be involved is that I wanted to make sure that it is at the highest, most ethical level we can have it, and transparency is key so that everybody knows exactly what's happening amongst committee members. So I like the comments that I've heard and I support it 100%.
I would like to speak also from the very beginning that I would like to, although in some people's eyes there might not be a differentiation between audit and study, I would like my view known that I would like this considered with the levity of an audit.
I agree with that.
Because this is, I believe personally, if we're going to move forward, that we have to use that levity of the word audit and quit referring to it in city dais amongst ourselves amongst the public that this is an audit because we want to be thorough in what we do, you know, and I'm sorry, it's just perception and semantics to some people, but I would like for us to start using that word as opposed to study.
Agreed.
I think it'd get better buy-in.
Okay. All right.
And
thank
you? What do you?
I don't have a problem with it.
Okay.
Cool. Valerie, you okay with that?
I am.
Okay. Very good. Any other questions for Ms. Siafi on just a high-level overview of the process? No? All right.
Thank you.
So I've asked for a copy, and this is more for informational purposes and not to steer the committee in any way. I'd asked them for a copy of the most recent audit. I was under the impression that the enterprise fund is audited because the Deltona Water is an enterprise fund in the city, but it's all wrapped into one. So I got the entire audit that was last done. Not to tell you guys that it's done. It's more of informational purposes for the committee. But what I'm going to go back to staff and ask the city manager commission to see if they can extrapolate from the full audit an area for the enterprise fund so that we have at least an idea of the financials as we proceed forward of the most recent auditor's report. Okay, that's why I put that in there, more so for informational purposes. Next thing I wanted to talk about was timeline. I initially was thinking that the hopes of wrapping up this audit and the committee's work with the completion of an audit in hand will be by the end of the year. Does anybody think any differently than that or have a different timeline? I guess it's what, 5 more months? Almost 4 months, that's right. August is right here.
Yeah.
I don't know if we can attain that, but I'm
Whatever time it takes to do due diligence.
Yeah.
I don't think we should rush through it. I think we should. I think it should be. That's a good timeline, but as long as it takes to do this right.
We just don't, I personally don't want to drag it on. Like he says, there's the people for enterprise, for example, each of us have our own belief systems, but you know, a lot of them are essentially being taxed extra and they have no representation on that dais, so they shouldn't be. So the faster we get this done, the faster we can help those people that are really needing this relief, especially with the new assessment that's coming through.
That's a good point.
Yes.
Yeah, and at the same time, we have to give parameters to the company, the vendor that we're going to select, so that we set a timeline for them to do their work.
So withstanding their timeline, but as far as our committee work, you know, getting through this, yeah.
I'm going to back up for a second because you mentioned the 25 or the outside, and Tim did mention that also. That's why it was interesting for me to have Tim here. I know you're not a Deltona resident, but you have an interest in this, right? You're a Deltona Water customer. So that's what interests me, so that you have a voice, as Santiago had mentioned. That's what reminded me, at least in saying that, you know, you had an internal look in it or in the process to say what else can we do in that. So going back to timeline, can we say this, and I'm going to throw a number out there, we can go anywhere from whatever the committee likes. From the when we create the scope of work, 60, 90 days from that point that they get the contract to have a report back to us, and they can tell us if they can't do it or not. I'm just trying to...
I think that's fair, 60, 90 days. Like I said, we shouldn't rush it, but at the same time, I don't want to keep kicking the can down the road. Let's set up reasonable timelines so we know when, you know, if things are dragging, we can say, listen, we need to pick up the pace, but we do need to have some type of...
Yeah, because we've got to put in the contract, the performance.
Exactly.
Anybody got a preference on the number? From the point that we award them, the city commission awards them the work.
60 days?
I like that number, but I want to hear what you all
Yeah,
think.
60 days.
And if they can't do it, they'll let us know on the RFP.
So are
I
we
think-
saying November-ish?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that'll be
Yeah.
from the point that we award it.
Yeah.
The city awards it.
Because really, if we're using that parameter, 60 days, we actually have, you know, now 2.5 months to do that, to get to that point. If we finish up before, that's a bonus, but
And I think 90 days is too much time.
I do too.
Yeah, I just do the number. Valerie, what do you think?
Well, in the past, I mean, in history, when there has been an audit done, how long did it take them to do that? Do we have any history on that?
I'll tell you this, just from my general knowledge and questions that I've asked, and I've asked some folks to do some inquiries. I think we're kind of pioneers a little bit in what we're doing. And I think
Right.
staff has been looking at if there's anything else out there in the system that they put in for bids, for RFPs. And I think to this point, they haven't found anything. Can you comment on that?
We haven't, Kate and I were looking earlier today, and we haven't found anything that we have done that is, I think, all-inclusive of the breakdown, as far as that goes. But I know that it's basically up to the committee to come up with what you're looking for with your schedule of work, how you want to score, and what that is based off of. I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with that, but we can get into that later on.
So what
We're still
I'll...
looking though, so we'll
Okay.
provide it to you if we can.
So Valerie, thank you. Valerie, that's a good question. So what I'll do is, if the committee's okay with this, I'll get back with Kate, purchasing manager, and ask her to search Demand Star if she's capable. I believe they are, to see if there's any type of other similar scope of work that's been done in any other part. I think they could look nationwide, but I'm not sure. And see what those parameters are within, then get that back to us.
Do you know how long it would take a committee like this to actually select a business to do the audit? How long that process takes?
It usually doesn't take, it really depends on you and how, if you want to, if you don't want, if you don't want meetings with the firms, then it obviously goes quicker. But in this case, I'm pretty sure you're going to want presentations to make sure that they're covering everything that they have said in the RFP. Because typically what we find is whoever puts the proposal together is not the people that are actually going to be performing the work. So you may want to speak with them to get a clarification.
I'm thinking that November is a good time before Thanksgiving. Because if it's not done before Thanksgiving, we're looking at January.
On the holidays.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I agree. So if on the summary sheet, they say typically from the moment that they enter this into Demand Star, that's the system that they use, that they usually have a 20-day window to respond. So I'm hopeful that today we get far enough so that we can discuss what the scope is. So the point that today, when we finish kind of sort of like the housekeeping side, that we have some scope work for them. I've asked staff at that point to put it together in a document for us in their format for the committee to come back and see it. Right? Whether I send that out email to you all, say, hey, this is what the summary of what we put together, or do we have everybody's acknowledgement that this is it, and then we green light it to go put it in for proposals. So, so once we get to the scope, which I think we're pretty close to it, what we want to discuss, then they do their back end work, and then we green light.
Okay.
Fair enough?
Yep.
But I think everybody, after that point, we're hopefully wanting to stay within the 60-day window from the award time period.
I would like to also, us moving on the scope, right? As it applies to us, and it's just merely a suggestion, okay, is to look into, for us, because I believe it is the standard. This is just my personal research, okay, the standard. Look into when you request by a local governmental entity for an audit by the Auditor General, their scope is in there, like, how we're digging deep. It talks about the points in the performance audit, the operational and financial audits, because I want us, since we're spending this money, to make sure that we don't go back after the fact and have it asked, well, why didn't you look at this? Because this might be connected to this. I don't want the scope to be diluted in the sake of saving money or just moving forward, because we really do need to do this one time, I hope, for the next 10 years or whatever. So that's merely a suggestion.
That ties into your public input.
Well, yeah.
Really quick, those three that we're mentioning, are we even considering the technology part of it as well in that audit? Because I think that should be considered as well.
That's what we're here. I mean,
Okay.
and if you follow, actually, here, if you look at, here you go. Take the
Thank you.
If you just look at these, and what I have given is a copy of statutes And if you go by those, they talk about what is usually included, kind of look at where it talks about on the second page, the financial, operational and performance. It talks about all of those things. And it goes back to what you brought up, David, at the very beginning back in December of last year, when you asked for equipment, meter, billing cycles, online, all of the things that you asked for. This just does a little bit more defined scope.
For the record, though, I would like that to be there because,
What to be there?
the technologies part. If it's going to be part of it, make sure that we have it on there, because unfortunately with government, it's always the same thing. If something is not spelled out, it's not included.
Yeah, and I think certainly bring it up again when we start talking about scope.
Absolutely.
We're almost there, but yes.
Okay.
I don't disagree.
Okay.
Going back to something that Mrs. Siafi mentioned, does the committee agree? Valerie, did you want to add anything to that before I move on to this next comment?
No, I'm good with that. I just think that, it's going to be a process that's got to be methodical and, but swift. I think, with the public input and, with the committee meeting and everything else like that, getting our ducks in a row to, get the auditor, we just can't leave that, we got to make sure we've got everything included. So as to what David said, we don't want to have to come back and say, well, why wasn't that included? Or, we needed to have this included. So.
Okay. Thank you. Mrs. Siafi mentioned presentations. I'm a fan of presentations, but I wanted to see what the committee thought, that if we did want to come to the point where we shortlist just for presentation purposes, does the committee agree that you'd want to see that?
Yes. And for the, here's me not knowing procedure or whatever, but also the, to have the public, obviously also, if we do that on a large enough scale, because to the end, it's
You mean
about,
do it in a public setting?
well, yeah,
Yeah.
open up for the public, but I just want to make sure, because I don't know procedure, so I'm checking myself as I go.
Sure.
So that,
Are the public going to be allowed to ask the presenters questions? That would be a really good...
I would be against that.
Okay.
I'd be against that.
I think that they
We
can
have to have
ask
some
us
sort
questions.
of order. It's not that, there has to be a process. That it has to be some type of order. I mean, I'm open to discussing, how we allow the public input part of it. But that process, if they have a specific question, we're all open, right?
Yeah.
Hey, Santiago, can you ask this or ask
That's
this
what I was
question?
about to ask you. How about we have each member of the committee have maybe a couple designated amount of questions where we're not, going way over time,
Yes.
but maybe 5 to 10 questions from the public when we get together with the public. Because personally, I am going to, have some type of meeting
Yeah.
because I want to talk to the
Yeah.
people because I'm only one person.
Yeah.
And I
You're
don't
the
wanna-
committee member.
Exactly. So
You're the
I
committee
want to
member.
hear from all the people that want to come and talk to me. And I'll come up with a list. And if it's okay when the time comes and we can ask the presenters, hey, these are some of the concerns that
They got no problem.
I agree to compress that, absolutely.
Yeah, I have no problem with that. I like that.
But I think.
As an alternative, yes.
Yeah, and there again, with that being said, obviously, we're going to follow up with a meeting after the presentation, and I think that that's a good time for the follow-up questions also. I mean, they're involved along the process.
Yeah.
So I don't mean to drone on that, but it's just really important for us, But yeah, to move along for time's sake to do it that way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a good compromise. So presentations, yes, we're good for that, okay. And probably presentation, I don't know if they have they got a projector here? Okay, so unless we get a lot of audience, then we'll just keep it here, okay? And with the projector. All right, I think we're,
Actually, let me ask you something about that. Is there would the commissioners be against us going downstairs, or is that?
they didn't tell me where to go. I just felt that it was cozy.
Yeah.
Keep it simple here. We're
'Cause if
right
we
next
get
to each
more
other.
people-
We're, But if we start getting a full room, then or we have people standing outside, which I think she's because she wants to, then I'm open to it. They didn't tell me where to go. Just to let you know, I've been in this setting before, and I think it's more social for us to be close together instead of spread out.
Okay.
So another thing that I want to ask as we move forward, since we don't have the city, and I'm just trying to go along, we don't have people listening in, I think, live can't hear us. So if we can find some way to be amplified, I'm just saying, because some people can't come here or whatever. If we could talk louder, I don't know what the answer is. I don't know this room, so just moving forward.
Okay.
What does the committee think about that?
What do you mean by talk? You mean to the members of the audience here?
Well,
It's hard for them to hear you guys with no microphones.
Oh, I'm so sorry, okay.
But the commission, Heidi did tell me they are looking to put microphones up here for workshops, so maybe piggyback off them.
All right, I'll look into it. All right, cool, got that part. All right, then let's talk about scope. I mean, the only thing, Dana alluded to the letter that we started when we did our budget request. I only printed this for informational purposes, not to say that we have to do any of this or all of it. More so to kind of get the conversation started and maybe to bring some order to it. What did you want? Let's start with, what were the comments what was the point that you said?
I was, when I brought this up, if you look here, some of the things, billing procedure, meter reading process, internal controls on software, on, late fee structure, meter replacement schedule, bill dispute process. So I'm just following that lead. If you look at the statutes here, when we talk about in 11.45, if generally going down the financial audit, and as we move through this, it's general in that respect, but going down to operational audit, it talks about, to evaluate management's performance in establishing and maintaining internal controls, including controls designed to prevent, detect fraud, waste, and abuse, and administering assigned responsibilities in accordance with applicable laws, administrative rules, contracts, grant agreements, and other guidelines. And of course, those are tailor-made to the water department. Operational audits must be conducted in accordance with government auditing agreements, or standards, I'm sorry. And then it goes on down. So everybody can take a look at that to see how we narrow down that scope specific to the water department. And I think that doing that, we'll hear stories and take information from what, you and I have had conversation. Eric and I, we've had conversation about some of the pointed topics and then how we get the scope from that. So I think that we discuss some of the problems that we have seen from residents, to narrow that down.
Valerie, I know you don't have the document that Dana's mentioning. She's quoting the Florida statute in the definition section, what she just read basically, just so you're aware. Anybody? I don't want to chime in.
I'm thinking.
I like that definition. I think it's a good definition. I mean, do we want to piggyback off that definition and say to include specific things to look at within that definition?
Yes. And I think that we need to, because the scope should be so narrowly defined in order to cover everything, but not wasting the time to going down rabbit holes.
Mm-hmm.
I think the time to go down rabbit holes is when we dialogue with residents about what those issues are, and then we, bring examples up. So people have had issues with their water meters not being read. They're covered with dirt, that kind of thing. That would fall under I don't know, I'm not, operational or performance. So why is that happening? Well, there are three reasons maybe. Maybe it really didn't get read. Maybe rain came and put mud down. Maybe it just got skipped. Whatever. We want to find out the problem, what is the solution, right? And then what the expectation is. And I think doing those things, we talk about that with our residents. And we come back, right, with 5 things under that part of the scope. The billing procedure, we can take that apart.
Let me pause you there.
Go ahead.
Kind of bring some structure to
Sure.
where we want to go. Would the committee be okay with, in the RFP, putting the definition of operational audit, extrapolating Florida statute, right? And then do you want to outline to include looking at, let's start talking about those specifics. I think you said something about the
Yes.
meter maintenance, right?
Yes.
Let's go, so if we agree that an operational audit with this definition is good, let's talk about specifics now.
Yes.
And then we can go into performance.
Yes.
And then we can go into finance, if you want.
Yes.
So I think that's a great idea to include the actual definition. This is where I get into we need to make sure we define what we're saying, even within the definition. For example, when it talks about evaluate management's performance, is it the water department, or does it go all the way up to the city manager or to the dais? I mean, because I think it's important. I've spoken to a lot of people in the water department, and their management is literally the city manager. So my concern is if we're going to do the evaluation on management, where is our cap going to be at?
I think that's a question to bat back and forth, really. I mean, because the buck has to stop somewhere. You know, I mean, the buck has to stop somewhere.
And I think it should be the same. I mean, it's not that we're going to try to do a witch hunt against the city manager, but if we're going to do evaluations on all these employees and they're being told what to specifically do or not, we should be fair and make sure everybody gets evaluated.
So we're talking,
I think that comes
Yeah.
after. I think that part of it comes in when you present what's wrong and then holding to how to fix it. I think that would speak to what the city manager's responsibility
yeah,
would be.
basically, you
after
might be
that.
able to get out of this
Yeah.
work, you might be able to get what the climate is.
Exactly.
And then the work is done afterwards, whether
Yeah.
or not what gets looked into.
Yes.
All right?
I think you need to examine how decisions are made.
Yes.
Yes.
That's part of the operational, you know.
And performance.
And I don't think you want to put a barrier between finding those answers.
That was my point. Yeah.
And I agree with that. There should be no barrier to finding the answers for the public and the customers of Deltona Water.
At the end of the day, if this is resolved, then the citizens can go back to living a peaceful life, and hopefully we can, address some of the issues that we have in our city.
I wrote down decision-making process. I don't
Yeah,
disagree.
I
I
completely
agree.
agree.
Let's get into some more particulars within that definition, and then we'll jump to the other silos. Did you want to now talk about the meters? You mentioned something about meters.
I do, and I think that goes, for the operational, the meter reading process goes to operational and performance. They hold hands with one another.
Yep.
And me personally, I look at this, this is a resident, this is a resident owned. We pay for it, so we own it. But in order to get there, and we're talking about all of these, the things that it has to go all the way up, is in asking much like corporate structure, the 5 whys. What is the root cause? And I think that really is what we want to get to, so that we can move forward after this to how to fix it. So that's the 5 whys. But why? But why? But why? But why? Right, to get there. So meter reading process. I want to know things that. Have we talked about, are we short-staffed? What is the accountability? How do we know that the meter reader is reading all of the meters? Do we have, the matrix, are all of them getting serviced? How do we know they're not just punching in numbers? So I'm not saying that they do. I'm asking, how do we know that is not happening? What is the process if something gets misread? And I'm just bringing, since we're here in real time, I'm bringing to fact that somebody just had a $20,000 water bill.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so how did that happen, right? Did somebody jack the water up and pocket the money, or did somebody inadvertently punch a wrong digit? And how do we prevent that from happening next? That's the real thing.
Valerie, you had something to say?
Yeah, and I think, with everything, with the operations and the way everything works, like with meter reading, now that's billing. Is there something that sets off in that, let's just ask, are they using handheld devices? How old are they? Are they antiquated? If they get a misread, are they getting some kind of a signal? The signal goes back to your billing department. Does your billing get some kind of a workflow manager that says, hey, this is, off, this reading, something's wrong? Do you send somebody back out into the field to be able to go ahead and read that meter? Or do you look at it and say, really, this is bogus? It looks like it was a misread meter. So that's in billing. Do they stop that bill from going out before the customer gets it and fix it and then send it to the customer? So there's a whole lot that intertwine with one another and all fall underneath that operations umbrella. So you go from your meter readers, what do they do out in the field, what does the equipment look like, What kind of devices are they using? How old are those devices? If they can't read a meter, are they estimating a bill? Is that going to billing as an estimated bill? It all comes together. The credit part of it, and all of that. So there's a whole host of questions that you got to find out system wide. If this happens here, where does it go to here, and who does what when they get it here? And I think there's a lot of questions that we need to ask. And following, each department. So whether it's billing, whether it's credit, whether it's, meter reading, who does rates, who determines the rates, how does that come up, how do deposits come up? It's all of that, and I think those are some of the questions that we need to find out. How does this all come about?
Let me just kind of share what I have so far in that operational audit section. This is just shorthand, the decision-making process, meter reading process, the age of the meters. I added one or two things to it. Age of the meters, the maintenance program for meters on replacement, the types of meters compared to the industry standard. Maybe we're using meters that are not, industry standard, or they have issues. The reading devices, which Valerie just mentioned for the billing process, the staffing, and the timely readings are as far as compared to industry standards also. Process for errors in billing meter readings in billings. And then I wrote down also billing standards. I wrote, i.e., to look in for customer focused, right? Because we just talked about the $20,000 bill, right? And deposits. I think somebody mentioned deposits also. Let me just add one thing on the billing standards that I would like to see. I've talked to a few constituents that have been unfortunately in hard times, and their water was getting ready to be cut off. This is most recently, and they happened to get the individual that was going to the house to shut off the water. They seen him. They were there to shut off the water, and they had the money to pay. They were able to pay at that time, but it became no. I gotta disconnect it. And I seem to think, why don't we have a system in place in today's technology world where the guy's there already, or the gal is there already. Oh, you want to pay? You can pay. I don't want to send out bill collectors, but if the customer somehow there's an interaction and they do want to pay, you can just. This is one of my ideas. Mm-hmm. Pull out the tablet and take the payment there and save that person a $50 reconnect fee or something like that. Save them that $50 reconnect fee.
Or you can even have a supervisor go to the house and do it right there. You don't have to give that equipment to every person.
Yeah.
I agree.
I mean, but to more customer focus to save people from these pretty high disconnect or reconnect fees. So that's good.
I think that's a great idea. I do.
And we have things also when we talk about, what is a misread threshold, right? We've talked about that to where it was very, very high at one time. I believe that it was 100% misread threshold, when I know that they've already taken action to lower that to
20, right?
10%.
I heard 20.
Oh,
But we'll get
10
there.
or 20, yeah, that's fine. And then at that time, they leave a door hanger right then and there if their readers beep, because they don't have the ability in the field to say whether it's high or low, just that it's the threshold has been met. It could be lower, it could be higher. And at that time, to hang a door hanger that says an anomaly has been noticed on your bill, please contact Deltona Water Department to. Now, since we've gotten this straightened out, they're only on hold for 5 minutes instead of 6 hours. I'm just being funny, but that's one of the things when we're talking about the chain of how this stuff happens is customer wait times on the phone. If you have a mother or a father, whoever, they're trying to call on their lunch hour, right, to pay the bill, or they're trying to handle this because they have to be at work and on the road at 7 o'clock in the morning, they can only afford that 5 to 8 minute time to get some resolution. And I don't think that is anything, I don't think that's out of the question to ask that customer service.
Yeah, that would be
there.
Service level for calls, average speed of answer.
Yeah.
For a call center.
Here's the one thing, and I don't mean to interrupt you, Dana. I from what I understand, they currently do that now. If it beeps, they leave a door hanger. The problem that we have is that probably 7 out of 10 times they do not leave a door hanger. So the resident is left waiting till they get their next water bill. And, I understand residents. I'm the same way. If I get my credit card bill and there's like $300 worth of unauthorized charges, I want to know what the problem is. The issue that we have is that we have to correct is whenever it's like religiously happens every single time. Whenever the customer calls or the resident calls, it's, oh, you have a leak. You know, we need to start correcting those problems. And you know, if they're going to do that 10 out of 10, I have no problem with that. But they're currently doing that now, and they're not always putting those hangers on those doors.
And we have the issue also with, at this time, third-party paying systems where what is it, Scott, I'm not familiar with them. I was at the water department when a lady brought in her receipt where she had paid from, I'm just going to call it Scott, right, had the receipt that it was paid, and the water department would not take it and was going to cut her off because they had not received the funds from the third-party paying system. And that has to stop because
That's the human element, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, I mean, I don't know
to
what.
do the right thing for somebody.
Exactly,
You know what I mean?
exactly.
Just because it's not in your system, you can still be humane to this person.
Exactly.
Okay, we can wait another day.
Which goes to my other point, and when we're talking about operational, is that the customer always pays, right, like they're guilty, right, instead of like they're innocent. You have to pay that $400 water bill, right, or a portion thereof, even if it is not yours, or you get cut off. That is what happened to me personally. I was not able to prove my case, right? I took them all of the proof. That has to
Valerie,
end
you
or
still
be
there?
changed.
Valerie?
Yeah.
Okay, we heard a beep. I want to make sure you're still there. Go ahead.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
But I'm saying all of those hold hands with the other, that as far as solution, and that goes to, you know, when we're talking about operational, that those things
How
have
would you
to be
define
addressed.
that for?
Cultural as well.
How would you define that for the purposes of scope of work?
Customer service.
Well, not only,
I think the
I
customer.
would,
Go
I
ahead.
would count that as some kind of, with credit. You've got these agencies that work with customers. Do they have anything in place to be able to accept those vouchers, those promises to pay? And typically, a utility will allow those agencies a 30 to 60-day window to be able to go ahead and make the payment to the water company that it's credited to your bill immediately. The other thing to what Dana was saying is, how come billing is not done in a timely fashion? Why do you have to pay the bill until you can show that, you know, this really didn't happen? Why is it that you got to fill out a form, you know, to go ahead and ask for forgiveness once a year or twice a year or once every 24 months? And I only know that because I got a bill for $325 a couple of months ago. In the 22 years that I've been here, I've never had one that high. And we had to go down in person and fill out this form. Why couldn't it be done online?
Valerie, let me chime in here just because I want to make sure. What regards to the, I'll use the term billing dispute or payment dispute.
right. There is no solid dispute resolution plan.
Okay.
The favorability is always with the water department and not the residents. It's like they're guilty until proven innocent, right? And that's the mindset that it is, and it should not be.
And the question.
That would be under the performance side probably,
That
right?
would be on the performance side because we're talking about alternative methods of providing program services or products, you
And
know?
is an auditing firm able to get in there to?
But what,
Hold
you
on,
know,
Valerie, let Tim finish and you're next.
Is an auditing firm able to go in there and to investigate and look at policies and procedures that are in place in the customer service to actually empower them to work with the customers rather than say, this is all we can do? There should be a way for a customer service rep to go quickly to a supervisor and explain the situation, grant some sort of an extension instead of the hardcore water company is always right, you have to pay.
I would think, Valerie, I know you're next, but I just want to add this. I would think that I think we know that that's an issue, right? So we
Yeah.
don't really need an auditor to tell us, right?
Right.
But I'd hope that, and
I
maybe
think
we can
we
do
do.
this as a committee, as a sideline, have our own separate little report to the committee, right? To the commission, like examples of service stuff, right? And then that's a culture thing, right? And how are they going to fix it? Because ultimately, everything we come up with, I don't think the auditor is going to tell them, you need to do this. They're going to say, there is possibly a culture of an
Right.
environment that's not customer friendly, right? Which we feel that there is. And then at that point, the city commission will respond to it.
Can an auditor spend the day with a meter reader?
I don't know. Let me get Valerie. Valerie?
And just to kind of piggyback on that, what are the guidelines for credit arrangements? You know, do they give a credit arrangement? How long can they give a credit arrangement? Since they bill in arrears, how many days out would they do that? If you get an anomaly.
Yeah, it's like a grace period. Like a grace period during the dispute process.
Right.
Yeah.
But where does the late fee come in? How, you know, after how many days? So if your bill's due on the 15th of the month, if your bill, you know, you mail the payment in or you go the 16th or the 17th, are you going to be charged a late fee because it came in 1 day, 2 days after your bill due date, or is it, you know, 5 days? What's that perimeter? If you make a credit arrangement, you're going to get a late fee, maybe. Can you make a special agreement? Let's just say you did have a water leak. You know, can you take the overage, you know, that's abnormal, that overage, and put it in a special agreement and break it up over a period of time than to expect the customer to have to pay that all at once?
Yeah, and I think those are all good proposals for solutions.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I don't disagree. Santiago?
Another issue that we have that keeps coming up, and I've heard at least half a dozen residents approach me about this, is the way that the water company bills its residents. The U.S. Post Office sends all mail out first name, last name. The water department bills out last name, first name. The person that used to live in the house I live in, her last name was Santiago. My first name is Santiago. I got one of her mails from the water department for her new home, and it was the blue envelope, so it was disconnect ready, but it wasn't her fault. It's just the way it gets billed. So her and I have gone into this war of making sure that, you know, my address is this, so I ended up opening an appeal box. The point is that, is there a way that we can fix that? Because it's not only, it's happening all over the city, you know, where people are having that problem. And when you call the post office, they tell you, Santiago, this is the way we do it in all the United States. The city of Deltona they're billing it that way, and they should know a lot better. And every other credit company out there does it too.
I'll tell them to look at it. I did want to comment for everybody's purposes. I know they do accept coins for your payments.
They have to be rolled though.
They have to be rolled. Sorry, I just had to bring a little lightness to it. All right.
Yeah.
Valerie, anything? I mean, any other item? I think we're still in the operation, even though we kind of dove into performance side of it a little bit. I'd like to try to wrap up operational, and this won't be the end and all. What I'm thinking, folks, unless there's objection, I'd like to see if staff can put this together when we're done, maybe within the next week or two. See how hard we can push and get back. Let's get together instead of just saying, let's go through it again in person as a group, and then green light it after that. But, Tim, you good? Operation. Let's keep talking about. We talked meter reading. What other operational stuff do we feel that?
I think that's going to come after reflection here. I think a lot of levity.
That's why we have to have another one.
Yeah. I think a lot of levity was put on like what structure is going to be here and the things that we're going to think about. And I think that we can all compile a list, right, based on the information that we have now, right? And then, as I said, I would encourage residents that are listening, that are here, to take a look at that statute to use as a guideline. Because that's pretty much as deep as it goes. That's where we want to go back to. We want our water department running well. So I think that I think that everybody can look that up, and everybody has their own interpretation based on what is important to them, right? And I think that we solicit those heavily, and I think that when we come back that, you know what I mean, that we have this list of things and
What I'm going to do too is once we're done discussing what ideas we have for scope, and I know they're going to be more later on, right? At the end of our part, I'll allow for anybody in the audience can give any other scope ideas, and we're looking for scope ideas specific to the audit. I'll open it up to that for additional ideas.
If I can just add, I challenge the public, even those that are viewing, folks, this is your time. You know, a lot of us here, we're very approachable. Even if you're nervous, I know it can be very intimidating. We're very approachable. Just talk to us, tell us your ideas, what you want to see. Help us be your voice.
Yep.
That's what I'm trying to say.
All right, going back to operational stuff. Any other, before we move over to start talking a little bit performance? I know we kind of dove into performance a little bit, but any other specific operational stuff?
Not at the moment. I'm sure we'll delve.
Valerie, you good? You want to talk a little bit about performance? I think we dove into it, but just from a silo perspective, I want to move on.
Right, no, I don't have any other
Now,
questions in regards to that.
the one thing I wrote down regarding performance side is I put the dispute resolution process, right? And I think one of the ideas was, do we create a grace period during dispute time? I'd like to do that. I'd like to have that opportunity if I'm fighting a $2,000 water bill.
There should definitely be a pause. If a customer says, I'm disputing this bill, there needs to be a pause button, a grace period to allow that to happen before any action on their account.
And Tim, for your purposes too, I'll add the 25%.
Yeah.
I know that's a major thing. I think there was a lady here that left earlier. That's a big deal for her too. Just to kind of give a little historical, personally, I'm not a fan of the 25%. You know, Eric and I, in my office in Hilda, we've worked on eliminating 25% surcharge statewide. I believe it's an abuse. The most recent legislation or amendment that I had put forward that wasn't successful, I'm sorry, was that in order to charge a surcharge, you had to justify there was an additional cost to deliver the services. And in some cases, like where you live, it's kind of sort of across the street, right? And I couldn't see a justification whether, maybe it is you throw another line across the street, but how fast did that depreciate, right? And I didn't get any success from that. As you can imagine, there are many cities that are benefiting from that 25%.
And it's not only that, David, also keep in mind, like I said earlier, you know, who in that dais is there to represent them upon that tax? They have nobody to represent them for that.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that's a problem.
But
I think that we have to remember too, rolling that in, and we were very adamant from the beginning about that being a part of the conversation as it ties into rates, because while it is the maximum that was suggested by Stantec, just because you can doesn't mean you should, right? And we want to speak to that, and you know what I mean, as part of operations also, because if the auditor goes in there and we make that a part of operations, operational or financial audit, right? Then it has to be kind of like, can you give us the X, Y, and Z on, right, how that was reached? Because I think that if it's shown in black and white, which I don't, it doesn't affect me, I'm sorry to say, right, that I haven't had that much experience with it, but to show the sticks and stones about why it has to be that way. And I think that if you show why it has to be that way and remove all doubt, that it's, well, still hard to swallow, but I don't think that exactly, the 25%.
It just, personally, I guess it's just from a standpoint of, it's not right. You know, regardless, it really isn't right, because they have nobody up there in that dais to say, hey, you know, we have a vested interest in this, so we're taxing them, essentially is what we're doing, and they have nobody that can speak up for them on that dais. All they can do is come up and speak to the podium, and we know how that goes. I mean, we really shouldn't be charging anybody an extended fee if they're not going to have somebody up there to represent them and fight for them and be a vote, even if it's a vote that loses, but they have no representation, therefore they really should not be getting taxed for that.
Well, I think to speak to that, I think that we're here with that. I think that having the powers that be behind the audit, right, that it becomes more of an official record when you have to uncover the why of why. I believe that it becomes a more fightable issue. I know that it's a policy issue, but what I know about policy will fit, like, you know, I don't know, in a fingernail or whatever. But I'm just saying, I think that rolling it into part of the audit.
I'd like to make the question to the auditor that, you know, if they can find out, you know, I think it's standard when most companies, most cities or municipalities charge it, but I'd like to know. I don't know that by fact. That's just me guessing. I'd like to know, is that the norm? And do all cities charge the 25%? I want to see if we're an outlier amongst a few. I don't know the answer to that.
I think for once in this case, we should be different. That's just my point of view.
Yeah.
I want to help our residents. We have a lot of people here on fixed incomes, and unfortunately, a lot of them as well are in the enterprise corridor. And we really need this is why I'm part of this, because I want to see us do the right thing for once. And even, losing 25%, I mean, we spend money in the city on other things and helping our residents for difference, or our neighbors, because they have no representation, should not be a question of maybe. It should be pretty much a done deal, because it's a tax.
And at minimum, what this will do, I believe, right, is the auditor, will ask that question, you know what I mean? Like, uncover that, like, where is the formula for that 25%? Let us know. We so far, in doing water department stuff ourselves, have not been able to get the number, like, what does that 25% actually equal in dollars, and can the city afford to get rid of that, or at least deduce by 15%, right?
Well, that's why I'm going to ask for some data on water
Yeah.
for the committee's purpose,
Yeah.
on the financial side,
Yeah.
to help us with that answer. Hopefully we get that in that report. Valerie, you got anything to add about the 25% or anything else? That part?
No, but I'd be interested in how that rate is, how does that play, and who came up with it, or why we don't necessarily have to do 25%, but why are we doing it? And for Tim being here, and having a voice for those folks that don't have somebody, I think it's important, but we do need to find out, about that. Can I just go back to one thing, though,
Sure.
on performance? What is, I would like to know, where does the company stop when it comes to, you talked about, interrupting services for non-payment and that $50 fee. Is there a perimeter that's where the dollar amount that's owed on the bill is less than what it would cost them to roll out a truck and interrupt that service? Do they put a perimeter on that amount to say, you know
No.
what?
I'm not aware of that.
If you owe $20, you're going to get cut off. You're going to get cut off. They won't roll it over to the next bill, and that's what she's asking. So you can't, if you can't hear that, why can't, if you owe $25, roll it over to the next month? There's no threshold currently in place, and so you end up paying $65, $85 for a $20 bill, right? So that's really, that's what she's asking.
But there's no perimeters set there.
No, there are no current perimeters for that.
Okay.
So that would be,
So
go ahead, I'm sorry, Valerie.
No, I was just going to say, so you're rolling out a truck for $20, but it's costing the company, that person, if you go out there once to interrupt it, now you're going to go back out there again to put it back on.
Yeah, you're paying
So that's
salary,
two rolls.
fuel.
So,
I think that's a good question. What are the economics around that, right? I mean,
Exactly.
are we being, what is it, penny wise, pound foolish, right? I get it. I think it's a good question to ask. And that would be for a non-pay, basically.
Something too, I don't know whether it goes under performance or operational, but stop saying you have a leak. You should be on a timeout to be able to use that. Like, I mean, seriously. There needs to be another catchphrase that could be changed. Yeah. Please, can we look into it? Whatever. Don't use the L word. It means, really, don't use the L word, because it's offensive now at this point. And they know it's offensive. It's been said. It's offensive. There needs to be something done operationally, another phrase that they can say. It's just,
And I think, maybe Dana, I think there was that and one or two other things that we discussed today so far, that as I'm sitting here thinking, I think we could submit our own request, stuff that doesn't have to go into an audit report. Like, for example, this is the committee's recommendations also. These little things that we felt that are not pertinent to an audit, right? But I think you should consider operationally.
a need and a want list.
Let me ask you this: the fee, the non-pay fee, what would that fall under? If
I would say that would be what, financials, right?
Financial.
Yeah.
Because I think that's another thing that because you imagine somebody gets a water shut off for $20, and then in order to reconnect it, they have to pay $75 or $70. I mean, you just put that person in a hardship. And I'll tell you this, and I'll make it quick because I don't want to bore people with that. I was at the water company with my wife paying our water, and there was a lady in front of me, and she was telling the lady, the clerk, how much is it? Can you do something? say, ma'am, in order for us to reinstate your water, you have to pay this amount of money. It was a lot of money. She's like, well, I'm going to fix income, I'm not going to be able to buy food. And the words that came out of her mouth were very disturbing. You need to adjust the way you're living.
Yep.
You don't say that to an elderly person. I mean, we really need to do something about these late fees. I personally looked around our surrounding cities. For God's sake, FPL charges like 17 or 18 bucks to, for reconnection. And Deltona Water, I think, thinks that they're the king of reconnection fees. They charge a huge amount of money. We really need to look into that. And maybe the auditor can give us some insight on, if those are best practices or if that's a common fee around the
I think that's legit, I wrote it
area.
down. Late fees and disconnect fees.
Okay.
I think
Will the
it's-
auditor look at the bonds and give a report on what the situation with all the bonds are?
That's financial. That's financial, so that, like, and here's the thing too, not only.
What would we look for though there? Help me in.
Well, I think part of the 25% may be tied to bonds.
The what? The 20? Yes, well, big financials, I get what you're saying. I think the bonds are more relevant to total revenue. And obviously 25% is part of it, just like any other bill, but I think it's total revenue.
Well, whether it be policy fall under the audit or whatever, I just think that, like, the Tim, it's a very good point. It needs to be addressed so that it goes by me. I start blacking out when you start talking about it, right? I think that it needs to be explained to the average Joe like me, right? Explain it to me. Why is it that when we talk about, and I've done my own research, but as again, I black out about that. And I think that residents need to understand how much in debt the whole water picture is, right? To get a grip on what we have to do, why we're doing this, where we're going, kind of thing. I think that the optics are that it's buried and that, and I'm just speaking as a resident, leave us alone, let us do this, we've got it. But it's teachable things, right? And I think that that's part of what's getting bypassed here, and I think that that's part of why we're here today.
And also, if they include the bonds, it just leaves no question in there that, well, that would be probably the next thing that comes up is, well, we didn't look into the bonds.
Yeah.
If it's part of the water company, if it's part of the water company, it should be included.
So the question, and just again, I'm asking for this purpose for discussion, so we get to what we want. So the question would be, to the extent of the financials,
Yes.
how do the bonds play a part in our financial situation, and it rolls over into rates also?
So, yeah, exactly. That way, if again, when we're going from an assessment fee of $108 to $128, it only seems like 20 bucks to people, but to some that's maybe that's gas money for the month. And we need to know why we keep increasing our water rates or assessment fees. And if the bonds can shed some light into that, then we'll have our answers as to why. And if there's maybe a bond that is a lot more expensive in interest, maybe it's more convenient to the city to possibly pay it off sooner rather than another one that.
And that's financial,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think that's a legitimate question. I mean, as a resident too, I'm very concerned with the debt that our water company holds, or water enterprise. I've even talked to individuals saying, maybe if we could find creative ways to have a debt service payment to get rid of that and see if there is any interest savings. I don't know how these bonds are structured, but sometimes bonds, the interest is earned, is accrued regardless if you pay it already. And I don't know the specifics, but having that big number over our heads is very concerning.
You're losing me. I'm just kidding.
I wanted you to know, because it's not like the typical car loan. If you pay early, and it depends on the bond is structured, you save all that interest. I don't know these bonds, but I know there are some that no matter what, the interest is earned.
I think that needs to be out in the open.
Yeah, it does.
I think it's to the extent of how it affects rates and how it plays a
Right,
part of that.
right.
I think it's a legitimate question. Right? Financials. I'm sitting here and I wondered the idea that what does the committee think? And I hate to throw another expense potentially, but what does the committee think of? And I don't know if we've ever done it. Survey our customers.
Stop.
I know it sounds like, I just all of a sudden, discovered electricity or something, but I don't think I've ever gotten one. We send them a bill every month.
I was at a meeting once where that was recommended that they put in an insert into the bills on the survey.
I think if you can make it anonymous so some of the residents don't feel intimidated about it or scared of any backlash, I think that's a great idea.
Survey Monkey is free.
We've put that we've put that forth before on other issues, and so I just think that that's like, I think that that's like, yeah, what you're talking about when we talk about the other policy stuff that we would like to bring up, but absolutely.
I mean, because there's people that are obviously, engaged in the process, right? And we know that. But there's still a lot of people that have an opinion also that are not engaged in the process or afraid to get engaged in the process, whether they're afraid of public speaking or whatever it might be, right? But I'll tell you what, leave that homework up to me.
Here's the thing where
I just want to see what the committee thinks about the idea.
I love the idea, and here's where I'm at. We could use a website. We could throw up a code on the overhead, and all of us could have a screen in front, and everyone can log into the website using the code. They could be asking us questions as we're having this meeting, because I know there's a lot smarter people that are usually in the audience than I am.
High tech, I like that.
And that is such an easy thing to do, because there's a lot more intelligence probably in the audience.
I tell you, Tim, I'm going to put that back on you. You come up with an idea how we can reasonably implement that.
Yep.
I'm open to requesting to see if we can get the support to do it. Work with Eric, and I'm not opposed to it.
Are we on scope yet?
Yeah, we've been on scope.
Okay. I also wanted to see if this audit, this review is going to include water quality issues.
Okay, good question.
We get a lot of water analysis where if we're not over the limits of whatever is it, thank you, we're darn at the high end of the acceptable range, whereas a lot of people don't drink the water for those reasons. So I don't know if that could be part of it, but I would like to see.
I think that would be under what, performance, right? Or operational?
Or
performance.
Operational, what do you think?
yeah.
I'm not opposed to that because I think there's a legal requirement for them to test so often, and I believe that data is sent to the state, if I'm correct. So that data is there, right? And someone can quickly see.
What he's saying though is, like I've noticed even when I've done because I spent some money doing a water study, that some of the levels were high, and even though they're high, what can we do to figure out how we can rectify it?
Sure.
I mean, the city I know has gone at one point in one of the years, they changed over from one type of detergent to another one that is not monitored by the EPA. So it causes like a secondary effect, and that's also not monitored. So, we have a lot of concerns now, and I might be probably the lone wolf in this. I have no opposition in doing something like that. However, I would like to see that separate from the audit. That's my only thing. I don't want one thing to get mixed with the other. I want them to be completely separate. I think the audit should, be a standalone thing, because I think it's the biggest thing that our residents are concerned about. And, if we're going to do a water quality, yeah, why not? But let's have them separate.
I don't know. And Valerie, what do you think?
I just know there's a lot of folks that don't even drink the water in Deltona. They don't drink it.
Can I pause you there? And I'm just trying to play, as they say, devil's advocate for discussion purposes. Can most residents of many cities make that same statement?
Yes.
So in general, the quality of municipal water or water that's provided, most people don't.
Michigan.
And I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm out of state and I'm drinking I'm drinking water from the tap. So I can say out of state I do, but I don't know. In Florida, I don't know. I just know that I personally don't drink the water that comes out of the tap, and I get a filter too. But I think there is a quality issue.
I think it's worth looking into. I mean, I'm not opposed to it, and I think we're going to open it up right at the end.
Real quick, the one thing that people forget, we drink bottled water. What is the largest organ in the human body? Does anybody know?
Skin.
Your skin. What are you showering in?
I get it. I think that's a legitimate public health question. And maybe you're right, Santiago, that it should be. And I don't know if they do an annual study on that. I don't know. I don't recall from being a commissioner if we got an annual study on water quality.
They posted on
a report like
Well, what's concerning to me right now is the fact that you just said that they're switching over to unmonitored
They are.
treatments, which
Yeah, I wrote that down, water
which
quality and types of
really-
chemicals used.
And I
is-
can send you, if you want, or everybody on this committee, if possibly next time we get here, so it's not violating the sunshine laws, but some of the information, some of the investigation that I did on our water quality, maybe that'll help shed some light and give it to the auditors, see what they think. But there's even one in there, and it's not to alarm or scare people, but there's even one of the detergents in there that is not monitored, that with time, talking about 10, 15 years, it has potential of having carcinogens, effects.
All right, let's take that for discussion for the next time we meet to decide, kind of if we want to, or let me do some homework on that too. But I think it's a legitimate point
Yeah.
for all of us.
Can I just say something? Can I go back to meter tests, or talk about meter tests, to operations? Do they, test these meters on a regular basis or randomly throughout the service territory to make sure those meters are calibrated, that they're functioning okay? Is that something
I
that
do
you
not,
do?
I don't know the answer to that. Dana's shaking her head no, but it is one of the points that I wrote down. I put it in the area of maintenance of meters in the operational side.
From my experience, it's been that if you have a problem with your meter, they bring it in for a bench test that you pay for. So there again, still punitive, which we're trying to do away with. There is a program, I don't know if it's part of the maintenance records, that the meters are supposed to be changed out every, I don't know how many years. I've been in my house, for a while, 15 plus years. And don't hold me to this, right? But up until I had a problem, my meter, they had never come to me to do a change out until I brought mine in. And when my water issue began, I requested no less than 6 times to have my meter changed out, and they would not do it. So that there is a problem there.
I added in meter replacement schedule.
Okay.
I'm sure there's
I'm
probably
sorry,
a
I
standard.
didn't hear that, but I was just thinking about that as you're talking about that. Sorry.
No, that's a great point, but, because I did not have written down meter replacement, I did have meter maintenance, but replacement schedule, because I would expect, I don't know, but I would expect that there is a manufacturer scheduled replacement lifespan that we should be following, right?
I think that there should be, on an annual basis, random meter tests done throughout that service territory where they just go and they randomly, they actually test that meter to make sure it's calibrated. I mean, historically, meters, as they get older, they tend to slow down. They don't speed up, but, you also want to make sure that it's accurate as well. So there should be random meter tests done, annually, just in the best interest of the company too, to make sure everything's working okay.
Yeah. Any other scope stuff, before I open it up to the public? Just want to see if the committee wants
I
to
have
add.
one small question, and it's probably not part of the scope, but is there any possible way that we can get, when the time comes when we award the RFP to somebody, any that you know of, any available state funds that we can use to kind of offset the charge? Because we also don't want to participate in getting our city into more debt.
No, obviously, the answer to that is probably not, unless we can find some type of grant that might be out there that we can research that kind of rolls into this kind of idea. And I'll ask and see if they can research what's out there, and we'll make some calls on our end through our departments.
Maybe even with the county.
Yeah, I don't know. But we'll make some inquiries on that, but I don't know it. And I agree. I think certainly once we come up with the second part of your point, when we come up with the scope practice, we're going to have to look like, okay, are we, trying to put a man on the moon with cost, right? Or are we feel like we're within the boundaries? Obviously, it's going to be a guesstimate, right? But we certainly, I think that's open for discussion when we look at the final, what the scope of work.
When I saw the $200,000, I think that's ridiculously. That's a lot of money.
I know. Hopefully we come in a lot lower than that.
Can I just say, that is part of what I discussed at the very beginning. It's part of due diligence. We would like to send an official request, again, and to see that if because I think at that time, if I'm not mistaken, they make a determination, like, can the city afford? You know better than me, you've dealt with them, right?
We'll call.
Yeah, they know better than me, but I'm just, if memory serves me, so, or to benchmark what that cost should be. You know, I mean, there's a difference between, like, I think what a governmental standard would be as opposed to what private enterprise states.
Well, yeah, and I asked because I looked into St. Cloud, Melbourne, when Randy Fine did it, all these different cities, and they've done a whole city audit, and they've come a lot less than the $200,000 just for the water department.
Yeah.
So that's
And-
the only reason I asked.
That, just to kind of give some historical, that $200,000 number, obviously, we're talking, you know, when you put it into a
Yeah.
state numbers that we deal with, that was just a number that a staffer had put forward, hey, let's put in a $200 bucket there, not saying that we were going to spend $200,000, but it was going to be a silo available.
Got it.
I was always hopeful that if that was approved, that we'd only spend a fraction of that, right? What that fraction is, I don't know. But, so it was no scientific number.
Okay.
And I'm hoping it's a lot less too for our city and our expenses, so.
Yes, I would like for us as by nature to kind of let go of that because the price tag on that is dissuading a lot of people. So I want the caveat to be publicly stated
Exactly.
that number is not a hard number.
Correct.
You know, we don't know until we get there. So let's not suppose our way out of a good thorough study.
I agree. So I'm going to open it up for public comments, and then we can wrap up as a committee, and then we'll adjourn if that's okay with everybody.
Yep.
All right. Anybody wanted to share some thoughts regarding the scope or the procedures we're following? Go for it.
Okay, so I had a few, and
I guess for the record, can I say your name, right?
sure,
Brandy
White.
Brandy White, sorry.
Deltona District 1. I kind of bring up the importance of the public comment and kind of reiterate maybe one of the ideas Dana had about having our input, and Tim also mentioned some of us may have some knowledge out here that could be beneficial to your discussion. For one, in terms of how long an audit takes, I would have liked to have maybe put in some information on that as somebody who has done audits. If you look at just the OPEGA audit, they talk about a 4-week period just for planning, a 4-week period just for field work, and a 4-week period to compile that final audit. So you're looking at a minimum of 90 days. So don't cut yourself short and think 60 days is doable as somebody who's done it. If they're doing a thorough job, it's going to take every bit of that 90 days.
Good point.
So I just want to throw that out there as somebody who's done them. It's a process, and you want them to be thorough, and it's a lot of information in that water department to kind of go through, especially if you're looking at doing all three. That's a lot of information to go through. On top of that, in terms of this being the first meeting, it's also first to us. So in terms of what I would suggest as a scope, I personally would like to talk to some of you individually, preferably with that old audit book, and kind of sit down and discuss it before I go making my own thoughts and recommendations, because again, this is our first meeting just as it is yours. So I don't feel equipped to tell you exactly, other than what I've already spoke to you is my opinion on what's important. But just wanted to throw that out there. And finally, the last one is somebody was asking online if you could introduce yourself. I believe you said his name was Eric, and he's with you, right?
Eric, yeah, he's my legislative aide.
Yes, my name is Eric Armando, and I work for Representative David Santiago.
Okay, the other question was that caught up before it died, so forgive me, anybody who I'm not asking your questions. They wanted to know, is it possible to go around and introduce how each was chosen?
Yeah.
Like, what was the process in choosing each individual committee?
I'll be happy to answer that, yeah. And I think, thank you for sharing the 90 days. And that's why initially I said 60, 90 days. I didn't know, so thanks for sharing that. And it makes sense what you said. So thanks for that. Your second point was, I blanked out. You said introduction. What was your second point?
How was everybody chosen?
No, that was the third point.
It was just about the sitting down with everybody.
Oh, about the scope. The scope, yeah.
Yeah.
So as we were discussing earlier, I think I had mentioned to the committee that we should do another scope follow-up discussion. So what I'm hoping to do is that now staff will take this, put it up. Okay, here's where we're at so far as scope of research or audit, right? And then us come back and discuss it again in an open hearing, obviously getting feedback also. So we will have another scope meeting before we say, this is it, put it out for an RP. And then as far as the process for selecting folks for this committee, as I opened up in the beginning, no city commissioner, no city staffer had any input in whatsoever with the individuals that are sitting here. I certainly had conversations with Dana, obviously because Deltona Strong has been integral in this whole water thing from the beginning. And I solicited her input to recommend some folks. I asked her to be on the committee for obvious reasons, because she's on it. I reached out to Santiago Avila, who has been very vocal, and I told the city commission, I think a couple weeks ago, that there are going to be people that have been critical of them individually and as commissioners, because my intention is to allow voices from all different sides. Tim Cole was, I asked him to be a part of it because he doesn't have the representation like Santiago Avila said. Even though I represent him as a legislator, and I tried my part in Tallahassee unsuccessfully, but I felt it was important because he's a vocal voice in his community that are all being assessed as 25%, for him to be a part of the discussion and certainly share back some of that. And Valerie was introduced to me through the Deltona Strong process. I've never met Valerie, so I look forward to you being in the next meeting. And all with the intent to saying this is open. No, and I can tell you that, and I know I sound like a broken record, I made it very clear that with the confines of following statute, right, and procurement process and procedures, that they gave me the flexibility to work this meeting uninfluenced. And then certainly, one thing everybody needs to remember, whatever we come out of here, this work product, this is not a mandate. I want everybody to know that it's not a mandate. It's a report back. Here it is, city commissioners. They're the elected officials representing the city. You make a decision.
And at that time, and as you say, there's no enforceable way to make the city do this. However, it speaks to putting people in a corner and upholding accountability. At least we know then as residents what to hold them accountable for, right? As far as telling everybody they have a leak, as far as policy and procedure, what do you do at this point? There's no dispute resolution, right? Pointing these things out, at least you could pointedly say at that juncture what they're doing wrong, and then it becomes, you have actual things to take and do this, you know what I mean? And it's like when we went to the water department, and when I say we, when Deltona Strong sat down with Dave Denny, acting manager of the water department at that time, we had a very specific list of things to change right now. The drop box was one of the things that we changed right then, so that people still had, they weren't counting, they were counting in the morning, they were taking deposits. Measurable things like that, the late fee, the water deposits. Why are you I don't want to get into that right now, but why are you holding people's money? It's not making interest. Give it back to them and let them spend. So it's things like that. We can then pressure them, have a better position to say, change this with this, you know?
And I'll just add that
We
I've
don't have
spoken.
pressure on them.
I will add that I've spoken to a few of the commissioners, including the mayor, and I have found, in my opinion, that there is a sincere interest to see what we come up with from the review, to see what they can implement. So that's why I'm here. I'm not here to waste my time. I'm hopeful that we can come up with some solutions and improve it and move on to other things.
So the last comment I noticed is regarding the money, the
Yeah.
200K. Research pretty much shows a pay a charge between 75 and 85 for their scope, so that'll give you a little bit of a basis of where we're at for just that type of an audit. So just kind of throwing that out.
Yeah, I'm hoping we could stay in either the 100 or the low hundreds is what my hopes are. So, you're done?
Hi, Terry Ellis, Deltona Strong. Tim, you made a mention about having the auditors ride along, and as someone who has set parameters for auditing before, and specifically utility companies, I would say that is absolutely, please include that in your scope. The auditors need to get out in the field and go look at some of these customer reported issues, and in order to address them. You don't want your auditors just simply relying on the people in audit in the office, just handing them documents and giving them their anecdotal stories. So I would just strongly suggest that you make that as a requirement as part of your scope, that they tell you, that they provide the avenue for which they're going to address that specifically. And then regarding what Brandy said, Brandy actually already attached the scope of the audit, because each one of the audit, you're asking for 3.
That's right.
Each one of them are 90 days minimum. And each one of them is 75 to 85,000, not just the whole thing.
Will
So
you repeat that for me, please? So
each one of those audits, financial, operational performance, because I've worked with other auditing firms in the past. 90 days is the bare minimum, but they'll give you for just one of those, and we're asking for 3.
Yeah, one thing, sorry to
So
cut you.
as you're
Go ahead,
setting
Tim.
your scope, I would say keep that in mind, that we're asking for 3 audits. So maybe as you're setting your scope, some kind of way we could come up with a comprehensive,
Run them concurrent.
integrated scope, some kind of way. I'm sorry.
So run them concurrent.
Yeah.
If they have the staff for that, that's the problem.
Yeah, audit, yeah.
And the
audit.
chart-
A lot of auditors aren't doing just our audit. They're doing multiple audits at the same
Right.
time, believe it or not.
Yeah.
They don't focus on just one audit until it's complete. They have multiple projects on their desk.
Yeah, so-
Tim, did you want to say something before I go to the next
I
gentleman?
just wanted to clarify, in your experience, you're saying that each of those scopes is 75 to 85?
Well,
Or is-
not scope,
No,
types of audit.
Types of audit.
Okay, so operational would be 75 to 85, financial would be
Somewhere.
75. and
Well,
that-
you already know what OPEGO pretty much details, right? So anything outside of that would be incurring an additional cost, outside of the 75 to 85 range.
No, what you could do is you could start with, if you identify which audit is going to be your largest, and then you could tack on a financial and a performance.
That's
Maybe,
that's
like I
that's
said,
that's what I'm
kind of
thinking.
put it together.
So
and
priority.
have
That's
it
what I'm
back
thinking.
there.
Because the financial one, and we can discuss it further, right? We hear feedback from the public. The financial one, I think would be more of the narrowest ones, to be quite honest, because we have fundamentals already, right? And then we just want to look in specific areas within the financials, right?
Right.
So I would see that not as a huge, and again, because I'm thinking cost savings at the same time.
Because
But
we already have a lot of that data.
we have a fundamentals.
And as you know, some of them cross over.
Yes, right.
Between performance, financial,
That's right.
and operational,
Yeah,
so.
yeah. No, I appreciate the cost
Yeah.
consciousness, because I think we should be there too.
Well, and let the residents be the guiding light on this, because that's what my hope is that the residents will define what are the most important things to you, and be able to define it that way.
And I'm hopeful, and I'll get to you in a second, and this gentleman will be next. And I'm hopeful that when I get back with staff later in the week or tomorrow, on the financial side of Deltona Audit, that we can have a better, more concise picture of the financials of Deltona Water in our next meeting, and maybe we can narrow that much better or refine it.
Just quickly, have we defined how the public is going to communicate with you folks? Are we going to set up
Well,
a website?
Tim came up with an idea that he's going to get with Eric that he pitched. I don't know if we can have staff do that, but we're going to look at that.
Okay.
And he said some technical stuff, and I said it sounds cool. Let's
And if
figure it
that
out.
don't pan out, you can always use the questions off of the live stream.
And you did already too. So, yes, sir.
So,
Can you tell us your name, please?
Mark Metzger. Just piggyback a little bit off what these guys said, including Avila. The last audits that I paid for, it's been about 5 years since I've had to pay for any, but just a financial audit cost me $45,000 to $50,000 for a $15 million a year construction company. Just financials. Those auditors came in, they sat there day after day after day after day, never left, didn't even go out for lunch. They were dedicated to that audit. It's time sensitive also. So, not meaning they have to get it done in a time frame, the amount of time they spend adds to the cost.
Sure.
Now, obviously, they've got to estimate that. But some of that's going to be driven by, and no offense to anybody, how cooperative the city is in providing all that information.
Yeah, sure.
I'm certain there won't be a problem with that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that is a big part of the
Sure.
time frame.
Yeah. No.
And also along with being accurate and thorough.
Yeah. And I don't disagree with anything you said there. And that's why I think coming back at our next meeting to see if we can have a refined version for just the enterprise fund, and then the committee decides where we go from there.
And also, there's nothing magic if this happens to be a municipally owned company. It's still a private company.
Yeah.
And audits get done every day. So it's not, we're not really pioneers here.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you've got to find, we got to find a firm. I don't know, there's a whole bunch of them. Ones that I'm familiar with, like Jerry Baker, I think his name is a big one. It's like out of Tampa or someplace.
Yeah, we put it in that system and they all see
Yeah,
it. There.
so-
And my pioneer statement, I know you referenced it, was more so the scope of work and how a water company works and all of those things. I have never heard of one of those being done, but I may be on a small planet. That's what I meant by I think we might be pioneers because we're creating this new process. Maybe, I don't know. We'll find out when we put out the RFPs. If companies saying, we don't know what the heck you're asking us, right? We've never done anything like this. Oh, yes, we've done plenty of these. I don't know the answer. So, was there anybody else? Yes, sir, in front.
Yeah, I forget who it was that mentioned the idea of having somebody go out and do like a ride-along with meter readers. I think the idea of actually doing a ride-along is a horrible idea because they're going to be on their best behavior. This needs to be done from a distance. Somebody needs to be shadowing them without them knowing it, and different people, different times, because if you send somebody out there in a truck with them, they're going to do their job that day. And if we're looking for people that are not properly doing their job, you've got to watch from a distance.
Gotcha.
Plus, it'll be an insurance issue. They won't be able to ride in the truck with them.
The gentleman behind, sorry.
I'm just wondering why was it stopped at 4 people on the committee?
There's 5.
There's 5.
I'm
Well,
one
yeah,
more.
you're the 5th one.
Yeah. We started.
You're not here, and Deltona's a pretty big spread out city, and I've only been in it for less than 8 months, but I've lived right outside it for 40 years so, and I've watched some of the shenanigans that's going on in the city. And to me, it would take more than 4 or 5 people to get a scope of what's going on in the city, and where no reflection on anybody, whether the Hispanics staying over here on this part, or the blacks staying over here, or the whites over here. And it's a huge conglomerate, and everybody is talking differently.
Yeah.
And I don't mean language, I mean, we're looking at, why am I paying this, why am I paying that? And what might be affecting me, since I'm retired and on fixed income, may be affecting me a whole lot more than anybody else that's working and getting increases that Congress isn't controlling. And they can absorb these increases that's coming out. Like the floodwater thing just went up 19%. And the assessment comes out
Stormwater.
19%. Deltona Water saying, we're going to raise you up 15%. So everybody's wanting a piece of the pie. And I only have a pie can, so I would think at least 6 people would cover the area a whole lot better than 4.
Yeah, no, I
Not
appreciate.
excluding you on purpose. Just
No, that's okay. That's okay. I was going to try to do a lot less talking, but I was thinking about that a second ago. The 5 number just came up as to was no science to it. It was just 5 possibly could work, and there was thought process on my part in discussing with my team. Should we make it 7? Then when we started going through the names of potential candidates to participate, I felt that we had a good cross section of folks that can participate. Like when I opened in the beginning, certainly Dana has been very active in the water stuff through Deltona Strong, and she's had some advocacy in front of the commission regarding that. She's also had seniors and non-seniors share many concerns or things with her. Santiago Avila, who has been very vocal in the city commission on this topic and have shared many good ideas and been critical and supportive, I think, in some areas too. And Tim Cole, because he represents a different sector of our customer base. So I felt like, and Valerie, who I haven't met, but I came through the process of Deltona Strong.
Who has excellent, strong utility background, okay, and has been in the city long-term also. And then the other 85,000 that we're talking about, that's why we were trying to gather that public input. We just kept it as an odd number also.
Yeah.
So that for voting or whatever.
But I felt like we had a good cross-section that would cover it, and then obviously the public participation side of it.
Well, I didn't find out about the meeting because one of all places, Facebook.
Facebook, there you go. It was in the paper though, too, I think.
Well, we don't take the Daytona.
Well,
I get it,
let me
I get
just
it.
ask you, let me ask as a point of reference, sir, what would be for you, how would you have known about this? Where would you have most likely read? Would it have been to get it in your water bill? Would it be, I mean, like, how would be the quickest that you were notified by it?
Well, the quickest way probably would be an email. And slowly, the HOA that we were forced into when we bought this house is gathering the emails, and I don't see why Deltona Strong couldn't do the same thing. Just put a lot more work on you as far as administration goes to keep up with it.
That's good feedback. We appreciate that. But I wanted you to know, I wanted to answer your question as to how, why 5. We felt it was good cross section.
Well,
So.
Deltona Strong, I heard that was today.
Oh, okay. Okay. Welcome. Thanks for being engaged.
But now, I also have to say this, is even though I've been right here in the area for 40 years, I have been around the world working for Uncle Sam. Most of the time, my wife has lived here, but she's not very politically, and she doesn't speak her mind. Unfortunately, that doesn't apply to me. And I'm a conservative, and if you're wrong, I'm going to let you know you're wrong. That would be my opinion. It would be different than your opinion if you think you're right.
Sure.
And that's no problem, as long as you can work it out. If you can convince me that you are right, that's even better.
Yep. Thank
Takes a
you.
lot of convincing.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Appreciate it. Brandon, you want to
I
add
have
something?
suggestions to piggyback off of how we could get the word out. One thing I noticed was we just had a commission meeting, and I noticed they brought up the budget hearings, but failed to mention anything about tonight's water meeting. That would have been a prime opportunity with a lot of people watching to get that word out there.
Fair enough.
Same thing, it is about the water department. Why wasn't it on our letter, the newsletter we get? It has never been mentioned on the newsletter that this was going to take place. Maybe there wasn't enough time. I get that. The meeting just came about, whatnot. And insert in the water bills. Same thing. Putting it on the city website. They
It's
have a
on the
big banner
website.
space.
It's on the website.
It's on the website.
Yeah. But those are all good
Yeah,
ideas.
You have
that's
to
Jimmy.
click through to get it. It's not on
It's
the
on the
front
cat-
banner site,
yeah.
right? So the problem is most people at the old website, you could go to that front page and boom, you had announcement here, click here, like it was, you could find things. You can't find things now. You have to go to the search and hit in that search to find what you're looking for.
Okay.
So if they don't know to look for this water meeting,
Yeah.
I mean, unless they're clicking around or whatnot, but again, the city does have emails that you could sign up for. I have them. And I got a lot of meetings about this, and this, but nothing about tonight.
Yeah, and let me just say about tonight. So, all great ideas. I don't disagree with any of those ideas. I think we should be more proactive towards getting civic involvement. When it comes to this one, I don't want to say I give them a pass. I called it because I said I want to get this started. So it was kind of like I called City Hall. I said the committee's ready. Let's get together. So I give them the benefit of that short notice of today's meeting. I know, and I'm glad the paper picked it up. I know not everybody reads it, but I'll give them the benefit of that issue because I think I called them last week. I said I want to meet the committee next week to get the work started.
Which is, I thought at the meeting would have been like the
I
prime
agree.
opportunity.
That I agree. I agree. Yeah,
This,
missed opportunity.
Very much.
I think we're remiss if we think the city's gonna be a big help in getting people here.
I think
No
that with
offense,
I think that with proper instruction that it will happen. With that
So
being
when we get
said,
up to the podium at the meeting, instead of, talking about whatever we talk about, just at the end, if we got time left, mention these.
No, yeah,
During public comment.
Reach.
Yeah, I think it should just be mentioned. Hey, by the way, this is coming up.
Yes, just
Information.
like any other meeting.
Yeah, I agree. Tim, did you want to say something?
yeah, I don't know how my fellow committee members feel about this idea, but I am not opposed to having an insert into our Deltona Water bill envelopes, our names with our contact emails to let them contact us with any concerns or anything like that. There's a lot of people probably in Deltona that are elderly that can't use the internet, can't use email, and they're kind of like being pushed aside. So if I'm willing to have my phone number in the insert and an email address if they want to call and talk to me.
Let
But
me chime in there. I think I know where you're going.
yeah,
but maybe we can come up with a more formal way to
We
do
need
that
to-
without
we
the
need to get
personal
people to
number.
have
My
a
number's out
voice.
there publicly, so don't
Yeah,
think
we
that
need
I'm.
to have a
I don't care about my
everything I
number
do.
being out there either.
Why don't you have one email, everybody has access to the account?
Yeah, let me look into that, more formal.
But I agree with Tim. I think that, that's what I would have thought would have been the most logical way to reach out to everybody is in the water insert because
Yeah.
they have to open their water bill. Most people actually read it. Some people might not, but it's there.
I look at the number and
Yeah.
pay it, but yes, I know what you mean.
Can we agree, like going back to where we're talking about contact information, where we talked, when we got into the scope about the public input, about how to reach us, can we decide that today? Because I know
I
that
would like
moving
to.
forward from today,
Well, I mean-
just that component at least.
How about this then? I think the simplest request could be, I gotta find out first from the city logistically how it would go into the inserts, what timing it takes. I don't know those answers. It may be easy. I'm not making excuses. But I like that one email idea and maybe they can share it with us, right? Print it out or whatever forward, if you prefer they forward it to you, right? Let me work on that and see if they can insert a comment in there that this is formed. And if you want to send any feedback to the
Generic
committee
email
members,
address.
a generic at this,
And
Water
then-
committee at CFI, whatever, City of Deltona. I'll ask that. I mean, I don't think that'll be very difficult.
And are
but let me
you in
find out
favor-
first.
For elderly residents or people who do not have an email or a
And
way
post it on the
to-
website too.
Well, if they
That's
don't-
internet, they don't have internet.
No, no, I'm
they-
just saying.
there's
more
got to be a generic type of phone number that they can call to contact the committee to be able to say, hey, this is my feeling about this and this and
You
this.
can set up like a Google
Set
number.
up a Google number and have that Google
very
number
generic.
accessible
Well,
to
that's
all of
Very
you.
simple.
Okay.
It's free and very generic.
And and here's the thing I would agree upon, since we can't confer with one another about it, at least we'll be armed with the information when we get into the meeting and, okay, so check, okay.
I don't disagree with it.
Okay.
I'll work on that on the logistics side and we'll send an email to you all through Eric. My only ask is there so that we stay within the parameters of Sunshine. Don't respond to any of the emails, okay? We can send out informational, just don't respond to any of those. If you need anything, contact city staff.
Am I allowed to?
And if we'll get, I'm sorry. We'll get a contact number for the committee's purposes for city
Okay.
staff. It'll probably be Sandy, but I'll get that and Eric will send that out also so that we stay clean with the
Sunshine.
okay?
Well, just one question about that. Am I allowed to discuss with my fellow committee members setting up a community event where people like at the center where they can come in and discuss the water issues with us?
I don't
Or
have
am
a problem with that. However, just to stay safe,
Right.
it has to be noticed.
Okay.
So do it during a meeting.
Yes, or has to be noticed. So if any, in typical Sunshine, if more than one member, right, let's say the commissioners, same thing, get together, they can host their own two-member meeting. However, it has to be noticed like this, saying Tim Cole and Santiago Avila are going to get together, talk about that, right? And then it's public from that perspective.
Well, his question was, can he ask them? So you need to ask them during like an open meeting,
Right.
not private.
No, I think he wants to set up his own public meeting.
He's talking about for the committee to go
So
to
after
the
we leave.
center, yeah, to go, like, say, just to the
Are
center.
you saying when we're
to-
done?
When we're done, if I want to say, hey,
We're done. When we're adjourned, we're done.
but if I want to call,
But
yeah,
then you can't call him after you adjourn.
that's my question right
That's
there.
what I was trying to
That's
explain.
right.
All right, let me recap.
I-
We're done with our work. We
I know.
submitted
I
our
want to pick
report.
up the phone and say, hey, guys, let's set up a public meeting at the center so the citizens can come and talk to us about
Oh, yeah, I don't see a problem
Deltona
with that.
Water.
We cannot do that.
Is that allowed or not?
Not outside of the
You guys
open
are
meeting.
not
Okay.
All right, let's bring a little structure to this.
I just want to make sure there are no.
We'll get you your answer. How's that? I'm not opposed to it. I think the more information we give out in settings, I'm in. Let's just figure out the logistics. I just want to make sure we don't get accused of violating any sunshine.
Think about,
Well,
here,
that's what he's trying to clarify. Basically, you can't talk to them about this outside of an open meeting.
Your
So
part
just
we'll get
think
to
of it
later
that
on.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he can call a meeting of his people around him.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
let them give them the input.
Yeah, you can get your HOA together and talk about it. Yeah.
Understood.
Yeah,
Thank
can do
you.
that, yeah. I'm glad we're discussing that too because I don't want any
Yeah.
hiccups. I don't want no hiccups with the organ. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Kim. I live in the Pine Tree subdivision with him, and I want to thank him for being a voice for us. I have a question. We just came back from 7 weeks away from home. I got a bill. Basically, we're not using the water. I don't have the lawn, so the bill was water actually is like 25 cents, but the bill is like almost $50. That covers 3 meters.
Customer
Clean,
charge.
a clean meter, a sewer meter, and a reclaim meter base fee. Now, if they don't replace the meter, why do they keep increasing the fee every year? And also, we never have a reclaim water meter before, and now we do. That's I would like.
Yeah,
to
what
find out the
you're
reason.
being charged for there is the base fee
Right.
for having, just to be connected to the
Right.
system.
Which
That's
is the
right.
meter.
Yeah.
But if they don't replace the meter, what is the cost?
Well, part of our scope is to look at how often they replace the meters and the maintenance around
Right,
that.
because if they don't replace the meter,
Yeah,
why do they keep going up every year?
I understand.
I can say in 27 years, mine hasn't been replaced,
Yeah.
but it's working great, so I don't want to It's working great.
We'll put hers and her bill goes up, right?
So should we put a cap on the meter so they can't go up unless they replace it?
It's all part of their whole operational methodology.
Every utility charges a base customer fee. Everyone does.
Don't break something that ain't.
It's something that that's part of the process, right? We want to answer all these questions, and that's why thank you for the input, and thank you for coming out.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, because we need to know, we're all residents here. Valerie's long-term residents, these guys are 20 years. I am now going on 17 years
28,
here, 28 years. We're all residents, right? And that's the thing we have in common.
The only way that we found out about this meeting is from the email.
Then you sent an email
From
to
the HOA.
We're going to get better about that. You know what I mean? We will figure it out how to get better about it, about noticing, and just more quickly,
Yeah.
okay, to finish up.
Hold on, let me close out the public
Sure,
side, and then we'll
sure.
just kind of close up last comment, if that's
Sure.
okay. Is there anyone else that would like to share thoughts? No? All right, well, thanks for coming, everybody. Let's just go closing comments, if you don't mind. Valerie, you still with us? I don't think so.
Valerie.
I am.
Okay.
I'm still here. I am.
Dana, did you want to start closing?
I want a Valerie.
Valerie, go ahead and chime in for a close.
Well, let me just say thank you. I don't know how many people are sitting there that came out here today, but thank you for your interest. It is important, and I think for us that are on the committee to gather what really is the burning question, or really what you better want to understand, that hopefully we can get those answers for you going forward and be able to make that presentation and get the audit done. But I just want to say it's not falling on deaf ears. Just to kind of piggyback on what Dana has said, and I apologize. Some of you I couldn't hear when you were asking questions, but we're all residents here of Deltona. I think that our community is concerned with the recent, information that's gone out there with the monies and the billing and everything else like that. But our interest is getting everything, as best we can resolved here. And we can only do that with our folks in the community. Our community, in my opinion, is only as good as what we put into it. So I'm hoping that we get a lot more people involved and try to get rid of those pains that they feel and get a solution. So I look forward to working with everybody here in the community and on the committee. So thanks.
Thank you, Valerie. Santiago?
Pretty much the same thing. I'm here to listen to the residents. I'm only one person, and I cannot be your voice if you guys are not reaching out to me. I personally plan to hopefully by tomorrow put something on Facebook so I can start meeting with people right away. Something where everybody can come. I don't care if it's going to cost me out of my pocket, to rent the Central, whatever it is, but I'm one person, and if I want to be your voice, I need to hear you guys. So please reach out to me. We're not going to make this political. This should not be political, period. This is about helping the residents and bettering our city. I want to clarify that right now. This should not be used by any of us to gain any political points, none of that. And I think from what I see here, that's what we have is we have that sincere concern to help the residents. So feel free, doesn't matter what political ideology you are, reach out to every one of us and talk to us. And once our fellow committee people are ready and you guys have a date in mind, I'm willing to join in a group as well and talk to the residents together. But I do plan at some point tomorrow, putting some dates out there for the folks, and because I want to start hearing people right away.
Tim?
Can I kick in half on the center with you?
Sure.
I need to hear and I need to listen. I don't have any great words of wisdom other than the definition of change, which I love, is when it becomes more painful to stay the same than to change, we will change. And from my side of the street where we're paying the 25% surcharge, it is really painful, and my community is suffering to the point where it's people are not buying houses in our community if they hear what the water bill is. Their jaw drops. So we've been feeling the pain, and so hopefully this committee can come to a solution, and hopefully the city commission takes it earnestly and actually changes Deltona Water for the better, for everyone.
Thank you, Tim.
Oh,
Dan?
one last thing.
Yeah.
Sorry. Am I allowed to go through Eric to talk to them to set up a meeting?
Yeah, to set up a meeting, but not to pass through messages.
Right, no. Just
No, we
anything.
want a collaborative meeting so that
Yeah.
all the committee can be there to do a meeting and answer questions from the
And
residents.
just to clarify really quick, the comment I made is because I am running for office, so I want to throw that out there so people know that, it's a sincere, at least from my perspective, that we're doing this to help our community.
No, and just so you know, Santiago, I thought of that too when I asked you to be on the committee, and I felt that you can be objective enough to stay to the topic
I
so that we
appreciate
wouldn't
that.
be accused of that.
Thank you.
And you've done that well, so, and it did come through my mind.
Appreciate
Tim, are you good?
I'm good, yeah. Well, after the audit's done.
No, I mean, the comments. Dana?
My closing arguments would be
Arguments?
statement, whatever, is that, that none of us would be here without the residents raising their voices, raising Cain, you know what I mean, bringing this along, because it is the residents. I started this process a year and a half ago as a crazy lady, you know what I mean, and I've learned a lot because there have been other crazy people and smart people right along beside me, and it is a collaborative effort with the city and with the state rep's office. There's been a lot of hand-holding, or there really has. There's been a lot of teaching, and I think that every resident should be open to that process. We are all the same. We are all residents. My Deltona Strong people, I work with people every day and try to surround myself with smarter people than me and remain teachable. And I think that we're onto something really good here. I don't think that it's just this audit either. I believe that it is with the state rep's office taking this, that you guys have been moving forward on this when you didn't have to. You did not have to take this on. And neither did this group of residents sitting here, but you have, and you've stepped up. And I'm just really thankful. I'm thankful for everybody serving, because I'd like to be in my PJs, right? You know what I mean? Like digging into some popcorn right now.
I gotta watch Stranger Things.
Yeah, there you go. But this is important work, and everybody sitting in here, everybody out there is so important to this process. And I just want to thank you. I really want to thank you guys for allowing me to be a part of the process.
Thanks, Dana. Hey, I got to the public and the members of the committee, I'm very happy with the way this has turned out. First, I had no idea what to expect, but very happy, and I think we're staying focused, which is fantastic. And I have to tell you, again, as I said earlier, I'm optimistic that members of the commission that I've spoken to will implement some of these things if we find some better practices. So thank you for that. The homework that I have for me, I just want to make sure you guys keep me in check here too. I'm going to ask about the survey idea to our customers to see if that was looked into and what happened around that. Is that still potential? All right. And the email address for the committee, probably standard email address so we can get information and a possible number or contact person, so someone to call to share some stuff to get back to us. Public comments, I think Tim had requested possible another idea so that people can interact more of us while we're meeting. You're going to get with Eric, right, Tim?
Yes, sir.
To see if that's something that's feasible, reasonable, right? And I have to get back to the committee to find Deltona, more narrowly defined Deltona Financial, see if we can get a better recap of the enterprise fund so that we can make a decision as we decide the scope on how far we requesting to go with that. Did I miss anything as far as?
Where are we at with this? Is there a copy available to committee members?
That's the whole city's audit.
Well, that's what.
You want it?
Yeah.
It's yours.
Okay.
Did I miss anything? Homework?
I think we covered it all.
All right. Oh, next meeting. Now, I'm into working fast, folks, so I'm okay to meet next week. I think so, right? I looked at my calendar, I didn't see anything. But I don't want to push the committee too hard. But we said that we would have a follow-up meeting. I'm going to give this to staff.
Let's do it.
The list, and I think the note, they're going to compare it with the notes that they have to create the first general scope of what we want. We follow up and get some more scopes, some more ideas possibly from members of the public. And then narrowly define that, or define it at the next meeting, saying this is it, prepare it.
What day are you thinking?
I'm saying a week from today, if that's okay. Same time, same place.
I'm good with that.
And I want for the public. You okay with that, Valerie?
I am.
And just for everybody's purpose, I want to repeat the reason for up here. I just love the way we work together closely. Because in the chamber, you're wide. I'm not trying to hide from anything. Trust me, I could be on TV, but I don't really. This is for us to narrowly focus on the work. If we get a standing crowd out here, then I will certainly say we got to go to a larger venue or downstairs. But it's just more, I like the way we're working here. And if we can accommodate, I prefer that. Everybody good for next Wednesday? I'll ask the city to make sure they can facilitate.
That's
We'll send out an email.
July 24th at 5:30.
Yeah. But we will send out a confirmation email by tomorrow.
Yes.
Make sure we can get the space. and
Move
everything.
your chairs a little closer to that table.
Yeah, so you can hear better. I get you. I get you.
Although
we
we
find
find
out
out
about
microphones by then.
We'll find out about that,
Because
too.
touch base with
I
Heidi,
will.
she did come to me at
So you can
the
hear.
meeting on Monday, because we had brought this up previously. She said she spoke to IT or whatnot, and they said worst case scenario, they'll pass the mic
Small
around,
PA system.
but that they will have something in place at the next workshop.
Brandy, you have my word. I will follow with the mayor as well. I will
I'll
follow.
take it.
And Valerie, I have your copy of the papers that we had today, we were following off of, okay, just, I will present them at the next meeting to you, so for your files, okay?
Okay?
Okay, great.
Without any other further business, we're wrapped. All right, thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week. Thank you. We're
All
adjourned.
right, good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Watching tentative meeting is next Wednesday, 5:30, 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 Wednesday,